There's a theme that emerges between the special holiday last week, this Shabbos, and the upcoming special holiday next week. Last week, Jews around the world celebrated a holiday known simply as Yud Tes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, the anniversary of Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi's release from Tsarist prison. Rabbi Shneir Zalman, also known as the Alter Rebbe, referred to his imprisonment as a spiritual challenge to his work of bringing the teachings of Jewish mysticism, the inner layers of Torah, to the masses. Recognizing the godly hand orchestrating his imprisonment, he thought to take it as a sign that he must stop. Could it just be that the master of the world does not want me to move forward on this path of revealing and teaching divine philosophy, he asked his teachers? It would seem to me that if he supported my ways, he wouldn't have cast me to the clutches of this ruthless regime. His teacher's response would set the course for Judaism as we know it today. Not only must you continue when you get out shortly, they told him, you must double and triple your efforts. He discovered then that not only was incarceration not a reason to stop, but ultimately it was what propelled him to keep growing the Chabad movement, disseminating his teachings further than before. In the parsha this week, we read how Joseph was sold as a slave and eventually ended up in Egypt. The term the Torah uses in Genesis chapter 39, verse 31 is, V'Yosef hurad Mitzrayma. Joseph had been brought down to Egypt. The understanding is both a geographic one as well as a spiritual one. Joseph was dragged down from living with his father Jacob and soaking in that environment of holiness to Egypt, the antithesis of anything divine and holy at that time. He went from spending his hours studying, praying, and exploring God's world responsibility-free to doing slave labor for the aristocrats of Egypt. How does one react in this situation? One can throw in the towel on their personal Jewish identity project, or they can recognize this as an opportunity to discover Hashem in the most unexpected places. Instead of disappearing and losing his identity, Joseph thrived and grew until he became the de facto ruler of Egypt. The holiday of Chanukah is a celebration of the miracle of oil. After the Maccabees drove out the Greeks from Jerusalem, they wanted to rededicate the Holy Temple after it had been defiled by the enemy. They searched for olive oil, which still had the special seal of the high priest intact, but they couldn't find any. They had contaminated the entire stash. But the Jews didn't give up. They were determined to find holy oil, and by miracle they did. But it was only enough oil to light the temple menorah for one day. We all know the end. God performed a wondrous miracle, and the oil lasted for 8 days and nights until they were able to procure fresh, pure olive oil. Until today, although one can fulfill the mitzvah of Chanukah by lighting a menorah of candles or pretty much any fuel, the code of Jewish law is clear. The best and nicest way to do the mitzvah is to light a menorah with olive oil. The way oil is extracted from an olive is by crushing it, which destroys the olive's appearance. Before the process, the olive is a beautiful fruit on the tree. But that beauty does not do proper justice to the greatness of the olive. It's only after it's pressed that its greatest contribution is realized. The oil now brings light and warmth to the world around it. What time of day do we light our menorah? When it's dark. Darkness was only created for the purpose of illuminating it. That's what Joseph did in Egypt in his years of darkness. That's what the Maccabees did during their darkest days. And that's what the Alter Rebbe did with his sacrifice to give us the teachings of Hasidism, which now enable me and you to illuminate our surroundings, which we know can sometimes be dark and lonely. Let us be like the olive. When we're faced with challenges of any kind, let us turn them into opportunities for growth and light. I wish you a good Shabbos and a Freilichen Chanukah.